I had been friend-zoned by my wife. I never thought I'd be here, questioning everything I thought I knew about love, marriage, and the person I'd planned to spend the rest of my life with. But here I am, sitting on the edge of the bed we've shared for 6 years, staring at the wall as the weight of my wife's words echoes in my mind. 8 years ago, when we first met, it felt like destiny. Emily was the kind of person who lit up every room she walked into. She had this laugh that could disarm even the most stoic soul and a warmth that made you feel like the only person in the world when she spoke to you. I fell hard and fast, and thankfully, so did she. We built our life together on shared dreams and an unshakable bond, or so I thought. The first few years of marriage were everything I'd hoped for and more. We were partners in every sense of the word. We tackled life together, celebrated each other's wins, and even worked side by side on a small business we started during our second year of dating. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. We had plans, goals, and a vision for the future that always included each other. Things started to shift earlier this year when I landed a major promotion at work. It was the kind of opportunity you don't pass up: more responsibility, better pay, and a chance to prove myself in a leadership role. But it came with a cost: long hours, late nights, and weekends spent buried in work. I told myself it was temporary, a sacrifice for a better future, and Emily seemed to understand, at first. For the first few months, I tried to compensate. I called her on my lunch breaks, texted her little updates throughout the day, and made sure we had at least one date night a week. But no matter what I did, it felt like we were drifting further apart. She'd grown increasingly attached to her online gaming community, spending hours chatting and playing with people I'd never met. At first, I thought it was harmless, a hobby to keep her occupied while I was busy. But it started to feel like she was choosing them over me, even on the rare occasions I was free. 2 months ago, everything came to a head. We had one of those fights where you both say things you can't take back. I accused her of not wanting to be in the relationship anymore, of prioritizing strangers on the internet over her own husband. She fired back that it wasn't about them, that she'd felt lonely for months and didn't know how to tell me. And then she dropped the bombshell: she wasn't in love with me anymore. I don't know how to describe the feeling of hearing those words from the person you've built your life around. It was like the ground beneath me crumbled, and I was free falling into a void. She said she cared about me, that I was like family to her, but the romantic connection we once had was gone. She didn't blame me entirely, she admitted she'd changed, too. But that didn't make it hurt any less. For weeks, I tried to fix it. I planned elaborate dates, cooked her favorite meals, and even took a week off work so we could spend time together. I poured everything I had into saving our marriage, hoping that if I could just remind her of the love we'd shared, we could find our way back to each other. And for a moment, I thought it was working. She smiled more, laughed at my jokes, and even told me she loved me. But then came the caveat: she loved me like family, not as a husband. That distinction shattered me. It felt like I was holding on to a version of her that no longer existed, clinging to a memory while the reality slipped further away. And yet, I couldn't bring myself to let go. I loved her, I still do. But the rejection, the constant reminder that I wasn't enough, was becoming unbearable. A few days ago, I suggested something I never thought I'd say: maybe she should move out for a while. It wasn't an ultimatum or a punishment, it was an act of self-preservation. She'd mentioned wanting something new, a change, an adventure. Maybe this was her chance to find whatever it was she was looking for. And maybe it was my chance to stop tearing myself apart trying to be everything for someone who no longer wanted me in that way. My friends and family have been divided on the issue. Some think I'm giving up too easily, that I should keep fighting for our marriage. Others think I'm torturing myself by staying in a situation that's clearly causing me pain. I've been going back and forth, questioning every decision I've made, wondering if I'm the one to blame or if this is just how relationships evolve over time. There are moments when I think about my parents' marriage. They stayed together for years after the love was gone, trapped in a cycle of resentment and routine. They eventually divorced, but not before causing each other and themselves so much unnecessary pain. I swore I'd never let that happen to me, but now I'm wondering if I'm doomed to repeat their mistakes. So here I am, at a crossroads. Do I keep fighting for a love that may already be gone, or do I let her go and hope that we can both find happiness apart? I wish there were a clear answer, a sign pointing me in the right direction. But life isn't that simple. All I can do is take it one day at a time and hope that, somehow, I'll find my way through this mess. The day after I suggested she move out, Emily surprised me. She said she'd been thinking about it and agreed that space might be what we both needed. There was no anger in her voice, no resentment, just a quiet acceptance that felt almost worse than any argument we'd had. She told me she'd start looking for a place, but there was no rush. "We'll figure it out," she said, her tone so calm it made my chest ache. Over the next week, I watched her begin to pack little things, her favorite books, a few framed photos, her gaming headset. Each item she moved felt like a piece of our life together being chipped away. And yet, I couldn't bring myself to stop her. I told myself this was for the best, that it would give us both the clarity we needed. But deep down, I wondered if I was just giving up. My nights became unbearably quiet. The house, once filled with the sound of her laughter or the click of her keyboard, felt hollow. I started working even longer hours, partly to avoid the emptiness and partly because I didn't know what else to do. Friends invited me out, family checked in, but nothing seemed to fill the void she left behind. Emily moved out 2 weeks later. The day she left, I helped her load her boxes into the car. We didn't say much, just exchanged a few polite words about logistics. As she drove away, I stood in the driveway, watching her taillights disappear down the street. It felt final, even though we'd agreed to keep in touch. In the days that followed, I tried to focus on myself. I picked up old hobbies, started going to the gym, and even booked a solo trip to the mountains, something I'd always wanted to do but never had the time for. Slowly, I began to rediscover parts of myself that had been overshadowed by the relationship. But no matter how busy I kept myself, there was always an ache, a part of me that missed her. Emily and I still talk occasionally. She'll send a text to check in, and I'll reply, keeping things light and casual. Sometimes, I'll catch myself wanting to ask if she's happy, if she's found whatever it was she was searching for. But I hold back, afraid of the answer. As the weeks turn into months, I'm beginning to accept that this might be the end of our story. It's not the ending I wanted, but maybe it's the one we need. I'm learning that love isn't always enough, that sometimes, the best thing you can do for someone you love is to let them go. And while the pain of losing her hasn't faded, I'm starting to see a path forward, one step at a time. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and like.